Imagine that you're a manufacturer, and one of the things that you're trying to deal with is the potential cost for outages in your production line, the cost that might occur if any of your equipment goes down and stops the production process. Or imagine that you are an automobile industry manufacturer and you're trying to enhance the experiences in your car. You're trying to engage your clients, your passengers, your drivers into a better driving experience. Or to give them the ability to understand the features of your car in ways that the manual doesn't really offer by itself. All of these examples lend themselves to being enhanced and extended using analytics, using AI to infuse a better experience into the car driving environment. The analytic, though, has the problem that it needs to run locally. It needs to occur with lower latency. It needs to be performed without requiring a whole bunch of data to flow back to the cloud or to your IT data center. We need to take advantage of the compute capacity that exists in those environments to be able to perform the analytic that's there, to enhance the experience, to be able to recognize the potential for the machine to fail, and be able to respond to that in real time. So these capabilities are being offered by IBM in a product that we call IBM Edge Computing. This has a couple variations, including support for edge servers as well as edge devices, both of which enable us to deploy and manage workloads into these devices, into these servers at massive scale with security and integrity, and being able to manage the diversity and dynamism of those edge computing environments. In addition, IBM Global Services are creating solution offerings that are tailored to specific industries and particular use cases that not only deliver on that value, but accelerate your time to market. So with edge computing, we can bring that analytic and perform it right there on the machine itself. We can reduce the latency. We can decrease the amount of bandwidth that's required. We can improve the security and the protection of the data that's produced off of that machine. We can look for enhancements in user experiences on that machine that delivers the value of being able to reduce that cost over time.